Morning. Today we're going to legislate on Boris's Brexit deal, and I thought it was important just to lay out what that means. It's a lot of people commenting on things online saying, I've read this on the Brexit Party's Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it's nonsense. So I just thought it was important to lay out exactly where we are. So what we're going to do this week is legislate for the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement is the bit that gets us out. It isn't the bit that decides what our long-term relationship looks like. If you remember right back at the beginning of this, it was decided we had to do this in two phases. We had to do the bit where we leave, then we had to do afterwards the bit where we decide our long-term relationship. So Boris's withdrawal agreement will get us out of the European Union. It will do so without the backstop that was in Mrs May's withdrawal agreement, so that we can't anymore be tied in the long term against our will to things like European courts and customs unions and things. That was the problem with the backstop. That's why Mrs May's deal wouldn't pass. So Boris has taken that out, and he said in the other bit, the political declaration, which is non-binding, not legally binding, that actually we'd like a free trade relationship with them in the future, not a customs union relationship as was in the old deal. That's the major changes that Boris has made. I think that's a lot better because it means we control our rules and regulations, and we can then decide with the EU and with other countries around the world what we would like to share in return for whatever they've got in a free trade deal. Unlike the customs union, though, where we would have had to opt into European Union rules and regulations, limiting our ability to deal with the rest of the world. So I think that's a big positive step forward. And what Boris's deal will do, will draw a line under this discussion about are we or are we not leaving? Are we having second referendums? We will have left on the 31st of October. But then we enter a phase, hopefully a more sensible phase, because of that argument about leaving or not is gone, where we talk about our long-term future relationship and we start to negotiate this trade deal, what we want access to, what we want to allow other countries to have access to of ours. So people who are saying, this deal gives away our fisheries, for instance, absolute nonsense. This isn't even the phase of the discussion where we talk about that. This deal gets us out of the European Union, then we have this 12-month implementation period to decide whether we want to allow the EU or the US or whoever access to some of our fishing waters in return for something of theirs. That isn't decided in this agreement. This agreement takes back control of all those things, and the default position is that we would have control of all of those things at the end of the implementation period, unless we decide to do something in a free trade agreement with another country. So the people who are suggesting that it gives away all that stuff, absolute nonsense. As I say, this isn't even the phase of discussion where we would talk about that or decide that. What this does over the next few weeks is decide that we will leave, we will end this ridiculous argument about are we or are we not leaving, and allow us to move on to the next phase where we can talk about the long term.